Excellent. So we're starting with a traditional reclining chest opener, supported back bend, but it's also a hip receiving pose, both flexibility and strength, like kind of a good density version of a hip opener. So the reason being, when we take our belt, which is now in a loop, and you'll place it so it's around the back of your pelvis. Well, it's actually a little lower than that, isn't it? Around the eyebrows of the buttocks, and get the twist in the belt. So you want a wide enough loop. It's worth getting the buckle so it's nearby your hip, and it takes me a while to align that perfectly. So I'll work with myself here to find that. So if you don't know, the crossing is at the ankles. The feet are really solid together. The crossing of the belt is above the ankles, but it is a X right with the belt. So you have your sandbag nearby. I want you to use that sandbag if possible today for the diaphragmatic breathing. And when you motion your hips to grounding and kind of have this visualization that the center of gravity is wide, just go wide with it. Let the pelvis really center. And then as you lower your spine and the spaces that are at the sides of the spine, they want to stretch open, and there's kind of this roundness shape in our, the weave of the pelvis, the basket weave, or the pelvic basket. So I'm going to use my blocks so they're kind of far out under my knees. This for you might be comfortable. It might be a little too much. So you can always pivot your blocks to turn them up to a higher level and kind of contour them, or just even slant them so that they're not harsh pressures on the skin. And then observe the movement of the shoulder blades as if they're trying to give the bolster kind of a massage. So your arm musculature is opening the chest, so the elbows express, moving down to the floor. And then we'll bring the arms back so they reach behind you. And as the hands motion to each other, interlace your fingers and turn the palms towards the back and feel that curve in the arms. And in the mind, the focus will be that sense of there's curve in the legs, the bent position of knees and elbows. And notice that mirroring quality of knees, elbows bending. And then I want you to let the hands actually try to stretch the arms, motioning straight-ish, as long as they can reach behind you, so it has a little bit more of a core length. Feel the abdomen move with the breath. So I want you to let the breath flow in and out through the nose, out through the mouth, and begin to create a breath basin in the abdomen and the pelvis, so you feel that center. And as your arms relax the grip of the fingers, you can either add your sand just below the sternum, so right where the ribs intersect, or pass on the sand aid, you choose. And we'll work with that massage of the breath into the diaphragmatic movement and the abdomen. So let the arms center so they're quite close to the mat. They're not right next to your body. They're a little distant from your body, closer to the edge of the mat, and still working the shoulders back and feeling that light lift of the ribs, because it's lighter when the sand is on that rib space, because each exhalation is able to stay fairly long, but also dense because of the sand. So take a few moments to reroute the circulation in your ribs. I know it has a little bit of pressure with the sand, right? When you're breathing in, you have resistance, so it's a weight training event. So relaxing your gaze, turning the focus inwards. and gather your attention on the even rhythm of your breath. Relaxing anywhere that you feel a calling to find ease. It could be hips, spine, shoulders, neck, brain, contacting the focus of breathing. And occasionally catching your breath focus with its ability to grip things. So see if you can notice a breathing pattern that's expansive and centering on the out breath. So that movement of the abdomen massages and tones into the organs. So continuing this process, but we're going to remove the sand and continuing with understanding of the movement of the abdomen with the breath. So simplify, right? Take it one breath at a time in general. So if concerned about the next shape, we're moving to maybe steady the breath and then notice when the change happens with the bones. So let's try motioning to the buckle and unlatch your belt so that you actually slide it off of your legs. And then the legs will connect into a glute stretch. So we're going to position so that left knee points up and the right thigh is externally, it's outwards, right? It's turned out. So kind of notice the nature of that in your thigh, like the upper outer right thigh, right? So you want to notice that rotation, okay? And it rotates from the right side of your abdomen across into the leg. Okay, so as you lift up the right leg and cross it, it's kind of nice to have a knee to cross it onto because holding it in midair would be not very stabilizing, but let's focus on what we're up to here. So the knee motions out, and if that stretch in the psoas and the waist kind of left the station there when you crossed over, I want you to still work on that reach. So take a block and place it on the right inner leg, anywhere inner leg. Could be close to knee, could be close to the top thigh, but you're pressing the leg outwards. And you still have that kind of conservative hook of the ankle to the knee, so you can't get too crazy with the positioning. But as you press, can you keep the spine centered on the bolster all the way to the tail? Right, that area is kind of stapled into the bolster. Okay, and then multitask for a moment. You feel that pressure. Some of you have a ball, some have a block. So I want you to have something positioned that's really low if it's a block to the outside of that the left leg, sorry. If you have a ball, place it to the upper left hip. And then as you tilt your body over to that ball, you move the block away and reach your left hand to the right knee, reach for the right knee and motion it towards you. And I kind of conveniently seem to have this block over here too. And I'm going to keep it at that mid position. It might work for you, it might not. So I'm not focused so much on how far this leg crosses to the left, but I'm really emphasizing and pinpointing this right hip connector into the glute muscle. Okay, so feel the right arm reach back besides your head and encourage the length, but also the expansiveness of the right rib cage. Okay, so feel like you are in a arched position, but it's really supported, right? You might be doing a lot of arching in your back, but it doesn't hurt, right? There's no difficulties in your nervous system. And that's the trick with restorative, is that you're kind of playing tricks with it, right? You're putting all these cushions under you and blankets, but your body's still getting into these shapes but the nervous system isn't triggered to be tensing. So you're able to loosen up the fascia, right? And expand through the connective tissue. Sometimes slower practice is a little bit richer, right, in the long run. So with this understanding, let the right arm reach open and straight down besides your hip. And as you lower the left hand down, move the knees back to the stage they were prior to this. Uncross, left foot to right leg, so switch it through. Move the ball and take a block to that left leg and press. Okay, the block could be any measurement that works for you, whether it's flat, it's mid-height, you decide. But that inner flesh will likely get some sensation. Doesn't have to be intense or uncomfortable or really feeling like it's causing the most effect, just feeling movement gliding through the inner leg. Yeah, and the interesting part here, let's put the block away, just off to the side. You don't have to go put it away for the day, but put the ball right next to your right hip and then lean your body weight into that ball and reach with the right hand to the left knee and pull. So noticing that we're using, we have the same body in a different shape, and there are some similar movements that we're doing as we did in the first pose, but they have a different traction. It's an attraction in your psyche, but it's also traction. So when you pull with your right hand, feel if the left arm moving back is even useful for you right now. Maybe it's taking away from your ability to ease the hip. So it could be your arm is on the floor, but notice your drive when you pull on that left knee and you motion the leg across, or you pull it towards you. What's better for you, towards you or across? I think you're the only one that knows you. Maybe. But some of these help you discover the balance and the imbalance, probably more so sometimes. So work to feeling what's balanced in your rib cage right now. And then release the grip, lower the left arm if it was up. And as you uncross, I want you to move your blanket away that's on top, and then push into your feet a little wider than hips distance. Lift up your hips and slide one block flat under the back of your pelvis. And you might nudge yourself a little bit back. The block doesn't have to be flat. You could turn it up to the second height, as long as it latches onto the bones at the back of your pelvis. You probably noticed that after you've done this for a while, you are really starting to note where your bone shapes are with your props. So when we're here, I want you to kind of have a mild awareness of where that block is. You don't have to hold the block, but I am going to on this one so I know it doesn't fall over. And then as your legs stretch straight down, you're going to work with letting your head find comfort. So if your chin is kind of tucking down, see if you can reach it back so the brain is centered, right? As best as you can create. And if the block doesn't feel quite right, you'll nudge it lower. It's okay if it's not under exactly the back of the pelvis. It might be feeling like it's at your tailbone. And as you stretch out the arms, so it's really the shape of a cross at this point, right? And the feet are going to reach, and instead of adding all these props, this will be a transition pose. So I want you to really work with the feet pushing. The legs are straight as they can possibly be. If you need a little micro bend, do so. And then feeling the shoulders hugging back to the bolster. Yeah, the spine is all good. Yeah, it's the muscles along the spine that can use kind of the rub. So you want to feel the shoulder blades. And then last but not least, feel the shoulder blades as if you're trying to guide them downwards in your back, not open and back, but downward. So the arms will slide maybe down the sides, you're close to the sides of you. And then feel what distance the arms can be from your mat, where you're feeling the shoulder blades kind of hooking down and under. Okay. So notice that, visualizing the awareness in the back of the body, but the front is key. And then as you start to slide a foot in at a time, press down and lift up the hips and scoot the block away. I want you to get a support here when you stretch your arms back overhead, slide down so that the hips are in that arching position. And you're going to need your belt pretty soon, so find out where that might be. Could be around the back of you, who knows? But have a belt, and you might place it just on your core. But expand your arms open and then straight back behind you. And with the back all the way centered, you're going to bring your hands to the back of your head so you're safe with your neck. And as you start to do a core crunch position, it does feel like a crunch. Feel that your head is relaxing back as much as relaxation could be called right now, into your hands. So let the head actually rest back into your hands. Be here for a few moments, center. Okay, be sure the feet slide forward. Now they're sliding front, and then it's higher up in the stomach that you feel the pull or the grip. I think we're still here, okay. Bring your arms so they stretch forward so you can actually get yourself to upright, so at least you're sitting upright. And then take a belt. I want you to connect to your back again. So when we were on our back, moving our shoulder blades back in, you're going to get your belt into a wider loop than before and hook that belt around your upper back zone, so under your arms, but still upper back, and then hook the belt under your feet, but encourage this to be a pretty snug fit, right? It's pretty snug. It's not going to have a lot of loosiness with your feet, but you'll feel when you lean back these attachments in your back trying to push into the belt, but it's different than a bolster, right? Your connection, yeah. If you sense when you kind of work on this kick up with both feet, play with it a little bit. If you're not feeling playful, it's okay. But you might work with bending and then feel when your knees are all right. If you have any things with knees when they crease deeper. But when you work with leaning back, feel that leaning back shape. And when you're right on the kind of precipice of balance, right? You want to find that fulcrum of balance. And then if your feet are a little bit awkward, that is part of the position with the belt. You can't take that little part away. The ankles kind of wedge together, making a uni ankle. But when the arms flow forwards from the shoulders, so straight in front besides the legs, feel your body lean back into the belt and take away what it should look like. So appearance is not going to be important here as much as that coordination of your back length, right? So you might have to lean back more than you think. And the legs feel like they actually kind of kick up. Okay, so find that challenge when the legs kick up. Right? Your shoulders might get a little burny, right? They might get warm across the blades in the back. Now start to tilt forward so you're moving your feet a little down. If you're losing balance, try to come back up. To shift a little forward so that pressure on the shoulders has kind of lowered a degree or two. And then feel if you can hold the back of the legs, even with the belt around the feet. Try to establish connection of bending your knees, feeling your feet push. Feel the ribs with the movement of the breath. You don't have to pretend you have gills, but it's good to emphasize that expansiveness in the ribs contacting the belt. And then lower your feet and take off the belt and turn to your left hip and turn to your bolster as well and pivot that bolster so you're preparing for a little side sage work. But as you heap up your blankets on the other side of the bolster to the back of your mat, you want to feel where your right knee is comfortable. So having a block or a ball or a blanket, if you have extra blankets, sometimes it's softer to have on the inside of the leg. And I'm going to get my sand and center that across my hip to start, but I might move it up to my ribs once I kind of feel where my ability is, well, actually even to get to the side. So lean, right? Get a block overhead if that's helpful for your side work. But after that boat pose, you'll likely enjoy kind of experiencing this length of the connectors that were probably strengthening, right? They were toning and contracting to get you to that registering that circulation in your core. So feel this as a core exercise, even though it's likely a little comforting comparative to the last pose. And feel where the right leg is either touching to the ball or to the floor, and working your waist to expand. Now that could be you turn a little bit on the back of your head. It could be you're lying on the side of your head. And it might mean that you change your height with your blanket if you energetically don't feel supported, right? For me right now, it feels best to have my right arm open, not overhead, and my head a little higher on the blanket. So I kind of rolled it up. And you might make it back overhead with your arms still, but create time to kind of cultivate that breathing pattern through the ribs, expanding and releasing through the waist and the back of the waist. And give it a few more moments. Settle the spine on its side. So good for the back. Now with that upper arm shifting down, if it's already down the side, perfect. But as you feel that arm move the sand away, still work with the sense of that right leg and its ability to either kind of almost stretch, like your hip is pointing a little forward, and you're getting a feel of the front of the hip bone lengthening. So that to you in your inner environment is kind of akin to an upward dog type of motion with the hip. I mean, you're a side being right now. You're on your side, so it doesn't have the same movement exactly. But that's the key, is that you're trying to lengthen that space. So when you turn and bring your right knee towards your left, I want you to pivot and try to find a rotation into that up dog. So I have to kind of push all my props tiny bit around. I'll use my bolster under my frontal thigh. And then as I lengthen into the bolster, I'm going to work on lifting up, and that advanced energy of the torso in this shape is likely going to cause, right, a little bit of circulation kind of build up in your upper back. So feel when you come back to table, and then you push back to downward dog. Can you walk your feet a little forward so that you can accommodate the spacing needs of your bone structure? And then maybe you have to walk out the legs. I would go completely spontaneous here and get a feeling of inverting the body with this dynamic inversion. it's very dynamic because you have arms and legs that are equally responding to the earth to get your hips high, right? So they're both kind of living, active pieces, different than if you were lying on your back with your hips on a bolster and legs up. Right now, it's like you have to keep your arms toned and your legs toned to hold yourself up, right? You can't completely melt out in this one. So feel the hips move back and let the weight of your head somewhat feel like it stretches your spine. It's pretty active arm-wise here. Okay, now lift up your heels and notice the tops of the thighs if they can kind of pull up so you feel circulation through the legs, and lower the heels down. Okay, now as you walk your feet closer together, okay, and you're going to move your weight forward into your arms and then down, hands and knees, toes under, round your back into a cat pose. It's a tucked cat, isn't it? Knees are close. Not an oftentimes looking cat pose with knees in. And then as you mildly arch the back, take your side stage on the right hip down. Okay, so move into the other side. And as you establish that prop prep, you might work with the exact same height on the second side for your head. But when you angle your left thigh up, having something, so maybe the leg stretches a little back, maybe it's not very far back that you want to angle this left hip. Okay, so I want you to kind of notice this waist tracking. And as the right arm lowers down, you can go right into it. As I talk along the pose pattern, but enjoy movement of your torso to the destination of lying on your side with the bolster kind of bulked up. And this kind of brings me to history in this pose in my mind. I kind of remember pose history class here. When we have practices with the bolster lengthwise on our side, if the bolster was maybe a quarter shorter, right, it would probably be perfect because my shoulder wouldn't be pressing and having that challenge. So you might get as much of your ribs on that bolster right now, even if it's horizontal across your mat. And then take a breath and feel when you make time to breathe. And certainly the body is going to kind of swivel a little bit. You're going to feel inner layers moving left to right. And then back open through the chest, whether the arm stretches out or the arm is on its side body. Yeah, it's finding, if I put my arm on my side, I have to really find a good spot for my head on my blanket. So it feels like it kind of connects and hooks at the side of the back of the cranial space. And this is a whole land we could study sometime, just the neck and the cranial space into the brain stem, and trying to get that area to release. And now feel the waistband with the breath. Try to let go of efforting and attempting to do more extreme appearing poses, right? So finding the basic nature of breathing, space inside, filling yourself up. And then letting go, sweeping the body. Now this left side is apparently the one open to the ceiling right now, your left side. So we'll kind of keep with that left side tradition. And I want you to let the weight really kind of dump into the the leg, the hip, the pelvic frame. Let the weight be sinking there. If you've got sand, you're going to shift that off your side. And as you let the ribs kind of, in fact, if you tend to just shuffle out really quickly, you might back off and slow down and feel how the body fundamentally moves circulation wise, because you're going to help yourself, right, with inflammatory issues and so forth, kind of working with slowing and really feeling through these, hydrating these spaces. So when you roll into that right side, you might have to tuck your left knee over because that feels pretty smart, but use your hands both to push you up and then turn towards the front of your mat and sit on the bolster somehow. Okay, find your way to that. And I'll pivot myself a little bit here. So I have a little bit of connection. All right, so you're spacing straight forward. I'm kind of cattywampus a little bit, but as you pivot out with the right leg, you're going to reach the right foot open. You want to feel like you're using a lot of your bolster for this, like your body's like on the bolster, the legs, the seat. It's like you're using this like you would a blanket, like a stack of them. So I think in time, the bolsters have benefits over blanket stack because they're likely a little bit firm. So use it to your advantage because it's kind of one size. And then when I put sand on the left leg, I'm going to get a belt. And I think we got our belts connected in loops. And if your belt loop got disconnected, you can go ahead and connect it again. So you're going to make a loop. It's going to be pretty small. So you got a longer belt that way, kind of smallish. I'm going to bend the right knee and hook the belt around the foot. Just we're still feeling the bones of the foot, like the plantar part of the foot, your arch. So kind of pull a little bit there. You know, try to pull so that your foot is flexing, basic. Okay, I'm going to put the belt around my right back pelvis. And then as I stretch the left hand back to the belt, I'm going to be a little careful of the shoulder here. So I want you to work on the waist turning. Now, if you need a ball or block under the left knee, put it there. I gotta mention, take care of yourself all the time. So in class, if you need a little extra, just use it. Take support. Now, when I turn, I'm working on getting my waist to turn left and my right hand to the left leg. And I happen to slip this left hand back and it's now off of my body, but I'm still holding my belt. But I want you to work on feeling that chest open, but only the right amount. So if I push this belt really far back and crank around and feel this kind of pop into sensation, not pop, but I feel it, the sensation kind of pop up. That might be too much, right? If it's at the head. So I want you to get a feel more in your ribs working. That should be dominant. You still might feel specifically in your shoulder, but if it's doing all the energy in that shoulder, it's probably too much. You'll feel it tomorrow. So be careful, right? How far you push back with the left arm. Okay, but with that event of moving to the left, you're going to reach with your right hand to the belt. You can get that belt there. So now I'm kind of working, opening out my center. And then I'm going to turn to look down to the right leg. So my neck has to stretch now. So this is where you might move your left arm really close to you, not push it far back, so that you can guide your right hand down closer to your foot. And you do not have to hold your belt with your left hand continuously. You can let it go. You might want to stay with it for today and just kind of understand this back waist work, the back posterior core. Okay, so take a few moments and feel your body leaning into that right leg. There should be always further to go. Right, if you seem to fold at the hips and you are touching your leg with your brain, then you probably aren't really utilizing your core connectors. So keep that positioning of, this looks good, it's what I can see. So get a feel when you're pulling with your right hand and then observing the sensation all the way through even the left arm into the neck. Okay, now, as you slide the right hand up, then you're going to carefully use that handhold, let go of the belt with your right hand. And then as you shift back upright, I want you to bring your right foot forward and put it on a block, okay? So this left arm, everything's probably kind of surprised what it's been going through, like, what's going on now with my core? So I put the right foot on top of a block, and I'm going to take a moment to get my left arm up, bend the elbow. Let's keep this one pretty elementary today. So feel the elbow lift. And then as the elbow lifts, that's my effort that I can go into without using my right hand onto the elbow. So I want you to feel that, and then bring that left arm across the chest, reach the right arm under your left, hook the elbow, so to speak, they kind of connect, and intertwine the arms, and feel the elbows moving a little upwards. But be gentle, instead of kind of this forceful kind of jab into the pose, feel that you can gradually lift, and your left shoulder is probably set into a little sensation right now. Okay? I want you to try to lean forward. So you're tilting forward. Again, you might have something underneath that left knee. So you're tilting forward. Got to be a good example using my props. So shift that weight surplus in the sitting bones. Come back through, and then we're going to take a full twist, but emphasize your back space that's connected to where your arms are crossing. So let's kind of let go of how it should look. Should my arms go full? Should my palms be pushing? Feel that broadness in the back. Okay, kind of like you give yourself a hug and you broaden your back. Now, when you uncross, however it flows for you, shoulders maybe roll back a few times. Our emphasis will be crossing our right leg over our left. So I'm going to move the ball away, put the left leg down, so my left inner thigh keeps opening. It maybe doesn't feel like a stretch for you on your inner thigh, but it is working that. And then this back is broad, even my ribs. So if I can keep my left knee pretty open and then try to cross the right foot over, you can tell that your tendency is to snug it in, like to kind of shorten the gap, right? You're not trying to widen it most of the time because it's tough on your hip to do that. So I'm encouraging you to try to keep that left knee so it's not like it points straight in front, not all the time. See if you can use this connector of the right foot over the left knee to open this right leg. And then turn to your right. Left hand is going to reach around the right leg. It can either hold the knee, which feels pretty nice today, and then turning the waist. So your rib barrel feels like kind of a barrel at this point, turning. Oh, the places we take our bones, huh? And just sitting on a mat space. So rotate, you can hook your left elbow or stay in service to this position. So elbow hook is fine too, if you can get your elbow on the leg. So feeling what you're serving in your back, breathing. Shoulders kind of have this direction to turn to the right. Okay, now when you come back towards the front, feel when you put your legs into a Baddha Konasana, feet together, knees apart, sand on the feet so the feet open, and then let your hands reach forward. If you've got a couple blocks, you might like two in front so that you have two hands and two blocks. And as you lean forward, feel both legs, but also the condition of the spine. So Let your back work into that flex position. So rounding, creating some space in the spine and the shoulder blades. Any kind of oozy movement you do is perfect here. Little bit of shifting. And the key will be all the way to the developing brainstem here. So you want to feel that you're connecting all the way to the brainstem. Through the stem, right? Through the spine, the stem up from the pelvis to the brain. Okay. So hands to the legs, like you're pushing outwards. And then as you lift up, we'll take the left leg out. We'll do the second side. We're going to go through the cues a little quicker on this side because we did the first. So you have an idea. The left leg goes open. The right inner thigh is out. I have a sandbag on the right upper inner leg. And then I've got my belt. And I'll simply connect that loop to the left foot. And then when I place the belt to the back of my pelvis, I don't think you can explain how important it is to be careful with the shoulder on this one. So you only have to have an experience one morning when you wake up and you did too much. So notice if you did too much of that yoga. Okay. Notice when you turn your torso, if you're getting kind of hyper active in your shoulder. So it's like this tummy stuff is, we don't equate it with musculature, kind of like, it's not like you go, oh, I'm gonna move my oblique to the right. It's usually that we focus on the visceral, what we see and touch and notice as bones and the main bone connection, shoulder, elbow kind of thing. But feel where your tummy is turned to the right. And then that left hand to the right leg and rotate. Okay, the right arm might not be lifting at all. It might be kind of nudged. You might even be very close to your body with your right hand holding onto the belt. So bending that right elbow if possible. It's fun to change up the angle of the right arm because you might feel now when you reach down with your left hand to the belt, kind of scoop up under the belt. So you're not grasping the belt from the top and kind of yanking your fingers, but you have your left elbow open, the inside of the arm. And then as you pull with that left arm, guide your focus with sensation through the right side of the waist. I know that area can feel significantly gripped up. So just any measurement of kind of pulling it apart is really helpful. So turning your head down towards that left leg can be useful for your neck muscles. But I would keep the right hand holding the belt if possible. If you want to let it go, that's fine. You could let the right arm kind of reach around your back. So it feels like it's a rope around the right side of your waist. And some like to bring the right arm up and stretch it over the side of your head to the left. So to each his own. Even if you take the kind of simple version when you hold the belt, it can be quite dense, right? Intensity in the torso. Okay, so the one thing you might be noticing is a lot of waist work and ribs. So moving into sensations of breathing fully, whatever that might mean to you. Is it getting out of your breathing in your face, that type of work? So expanding. Okay, so now as we slide the hands to bring ourselves back center, we'll take our block flat and we'll carry the leg. It might be good to really kind of nurse it, to get it there, helping it with your belt. And then we'll move that right arm up and bend the elbow. The temptation for me each time is to get my left hand to my right elbow and push it back. So I'm going to see what I can do just on my own, even though it's probably a little limited. but I'll do the best I can to get my spine tall and the tricep tall. So you're trying to get your right hand, the palm, towards the upper right shoulder, right? And the right elbow to lift up. Okay. Now cross that right arm towards your jaw, right? So it's forward. And then left arm is going to scoop under the right arm. So you're still lifting that right arm up now, but you're now scooped under with the left arm. And intertwine the arms. Hopefully you're doing the other side this time. Okay. If you can't quite recall what side you did last time, maybe there will be perfect balance. It's all in the mind, huh? So let that right hip open and let the spine center. Sometimes stuck in the mind. So we're working into moving the bones and feeling that transition internally. Feel the upper back of the waist. Good. Now I sense that you might be able to, even if we're not in a three-dimensional connection, I sense you might find, okay, I did the other side, I knew we went to a twist. That was where we kind of ended the set of this cycle. So when you unwind your arms, okay, you might go, okay, I can put the ball aside, cross the left leg, I can go right into it. And some would prefer to be here, right? To kind of lean and keep working with that musculature. It's up to you. But if you find that once you get that foot hooked across, my habit is always has been to point my knee forward and keep going there, like get everything kind of scrunched up. But keep the idea of broadness, perhaps. Just kind of notice. You don't have to make things as compact. Perhaps you can work with the center body and then that holding of the leg and turning left. Simple. Turn left. Feel where the core maybe feels really balanced from right to left side when you twist. Yeah, those aren't the areas that feel imbalanced as much, unless there's been some surgery, right? That will change that balance. But it likely is in the joints. So try to lift up out of the waist. This is a good time to get lifted. Find that inner lift. Let your eyes possibly close so you can focus internally. You can always tilt your head or bring your chin to move side to side. Really slow. Okay, and then with that balance from your sitting bones, especially with that left sitting bone slightly opening to the thigh. Okay, we'll start to move back forward. And once you aim your navel towards the front of the space, let's take the sand off. And we're going to move the blanket behind you so you end up with one flat. And then we'll take the left leg, let's see, top leg is going to stretch straight back. So put the weight in the right seat, lift up the left leg, and then move it, swing it back. So as the right knee is open and the left thigh is aiming, maybe toes like to connect under. But if I kind of point my toe a little bit, it feels like pulling in my back. So sometimes the toes under works or just something neutral. But as the arms can be either on blocks, you can put your elbows on the floor, you can put your hands open and kind of start to create this wave of encouragement from your spine basin to the back of the pelvis to the hip. And then I like to come down to my elbows at this moment. That seemed to serve me well, but we're all a little different in what might be our sensation that we're driven towards. So some of you might go to the left side because you're working your right hip. So that orientation is deepening the hip stretch when I move my hands to the left side. or my elbows down on the blocks or the floor. And you could also put a block and tilt it up and place it towards your forehead. Breathe wide through the back. Now, when you're sensing the connection into that right hip, I'm assuming you feel some circulation in the right leg, maybe the inner bones. And if you've done this many, many times, it's a new day. So explore what other parts are feeling connected or disconnected and see if you can kind of swirl some focus to connecting them. So we're starting with the right pigeon. And this will be just a short segment that will kind of break into a few low standing poses, but they will be moving through the whole leg architecture. But we'll work on activating and feeling that connection between them. So when you move your toes under now on the left foot, and you might get a little bit of energy of kind of lifting yourself up. I mean, it's sometimes a challenge to try to get up, right? Just to get up from these stretches. I mean, this is a flexibility position right now. So to move back to strength out of flexibility is not easy tolerance, right, for most of us. So when you position your hands and stretch out your wrists this way, there's something. And then when you lift up your left thigh, see if you can work your weight back into your right foot. So you're going to swing it back from pigeon. And I want you to alternate bending the knees. And then when you center your feet back, feel the hips lift up like you're lifting up your sitting bones. It's almost kind of ridiculous. You're trying to tilt your hips up and feel the arch in the back. Let your head sweep down. Okay, now as the hands press the flooring away, we'll feel how the calves get that stretch. Maybe some of you feel that. But as you lift up the heels and then just simply place the knees down, push the bolster, park it out to the side. Whichever is kind of your dominant arm, you might want to put it on that side. So when you have to pull it back, it'll be easiest for you, maybe. I'm not sure if that will be perfect, but we'll find out, won't we? Take the blocks to the sides of your mat so they're going to be easy to get when you need them for a lunge. And we'll stretch the knees apart and reach the hands wide and make this knee safe. So I'm going to lower my head to the floor, but keep the broadness in my arms. So open out the arms, head touches down. Now with the knees wide, this has its benefits. So when you start to lift up, I want you to lift, but we're going to actually lower the elbows down. So it's a lot easier in your shoulders. And then when you come up to what you feel like you're in table pose right now, but you're on elbows, elbow table. Okay. Round your back. So the feet are together, the knees are apart. Round your back, chin scoops in towards the chest. Some of you, your head might touch down on this one. Just don't force your brain further into the floor. And then arch the spine. Okay. So now I want you to bring the knees closer together and then lower down. So you're stretching down to Sphinx pose, but it's kind of like from Sphinx to locust pose quickly. So you're lowering your rib cage down to the floor, right? We're not on a bolster, it's flooring. And then as you keep your elbows by your sides, can you really slide them in by the sides? Your shoulders will kind of roll forward. I want you to push your elbows down. Try to get your shoulders to move back and up. It's immensely interesting to work with back muscles when you're in a prone position. It's so challenging to get up when you're down. It's the gravitational pull is very strengthening, right, for your back, but also difficult. So the breathing is challenged. So I want you to let your hands Slide back and elbows by your sides. So you feel like you're in grasshopper position. And this, just keep it there. We're not going to push ourselves up from this position. So keep the elbows by the sides. Hopefully your legs are kind of supported a little bit on your blanket. And now as you lift up, I want you to bend your knees. Okay, so the blankets can help with that lift. But you're bending your knees. You're going to reach back for your favorable foot. You've got one that probably your knee connection is a little more comfortable, I imagine. And keep that connection and bring your right arm, well, actually, whichever arm you're not holding the foot with goes forward. And feel the hand that's on the ankle that's pulling that foot towards the buttock, stretching through the quad. Okay, I want your hands to both be working. And then switch the reach. So opposite hand goes forward, opposite leg is bending in, and the leg that's straight back is relaxing. So however far out your knee needs to go is fine. So if you need to move your knee quite far, that is what you're doing if your knee is uncomfortable closer in. That's really important for knee stuff. So I let the knee open out. So some of you know that adductor work is helpful for knee issues. So this stretches out the inner leg. Okay, so now as we bring the hand on that side down and then slide both legs so straight back, have your hands besides your upper chest, push to come up, dog, okay? And then let your knees push downwards and you're gonna move your hips back, bring the legs in towards each other, and then step the right foot forward. So we're all on the same side. Okay, so we'll have our right foot forward. And we're first going to work with that lunge, left foot toes under, and then lift up your back knee. Okay, so stretch back through that left heel. Balance and kind of co-balance and activating through both legs. So I have my right knee above ankle, left heel reaches back. And as you work your waist back, you're going to lie kind of your body so it stretches over that right leg as you straighten it out. So as we lower down our hands on the blocks, you get to decide how your leverage is right now. Your leverage decides for you, doesn't it? So for some of us, we might have our hands up pretty high. The blocks might need to adjust up a setting. And sometimes this setting feels better for me than if I go all the way down to the floor, because I can co-balance my ribs and my waist to stretch, not just my legs. Okay, so feel if you can tug at the strength in the bottom of your right leg, the undercurrent. And I want you to lunge with that right leg, but lower down your back heel. So turn the left foot out so the back heel turns down. So you've kind of turned it open. And the right knee above the ankle. And bring the left hand to either your hip or towards the ceiling. Yeah, so you're in Parsvakonasana, that's what this is called. So we're in a standing side angle, just like we did on the floor, but we're happen to be on our feet now, not on our seat. So, but you could end up on your seat if you don't stay with the balance. So feel that right leg moving towards your right arm. Yeah. Yeah, my hand is behind my foot on my block. So my block is all the way up on its high setting, and yours might be high, might be mid height. Now, as the left hand lowers to the block on the other side of the foot, you want to feel that pivoting chain of events. So peel up your back heel so the ball of the foot is still on the floor. Feel the hip bones kind of in neutral between moving back and forward. And I want you to bunch up that back knee. So you're going to bend through that left knee and then feel the right knee move above the ankle, right ankle. Feel the left thigh try to stretch further back. So you're trying to straighten out that left leg, but the heel is up, the knee is up. And then lift up your chest, inhale. You're still on your blocks, unless you have superpowers. Okay, now step the left foot forward, but carefully come up to standing. So my feet are about hips distance. You'll see half of me, I know, but you're gonna lift up and lengthen the arms up and back. So stretching up. Since the blood pressure changes, you've got to kind of stamp a little bit into your heels and center things. center all things, right? Hands open out, reach the heart forward, start to move your hands down to your blocks and connect the dots here. Feel the heels as dots, okay? The head lowering down, and let those heel dots press down, kind of rub into the floor, and then take a forward bend here that works for you, whether it's to hold the back of the legs or to hold your elbows, and let the spine drain out. Give a few moments before the second and final side. Let the weight of the head drain, so you will notice the legs circulating into the back of the pelvis, all the way through the blades. You might purposely feel your chin tuck a little bit here. It's not a rounded back shape, right? So you might have some roundedness in yours, but this will take time to develop. It's a hamstring flexibility that will help the back go into extension here, okay? So it's repetition and practice. So hands are gonna move out to find your blocks. If you're really enjoying that forward bend, you can stay as long as you like. So continue on if it's feeling good. Step the right foot back, feel the left knee above the ankle, and start to work with lengthening that left leg. So that right heel for me is sliding back towards the floor, but it's not an easy one. So your back foot, like we've done a few moments ago, might turn out a little bit. I want you to kind of enable this left leg chain to feel that you're kind of moving your undercurrent of this leg to as much straight as you can here. Proper sentence structure there. Okay, and feel where the if there's any bounce in it. I imagine you don't have a lot of bounce to the thigh muscles, but if I put my blocks up a little higher, I have a little more give. So it's like fabric. I mean, it is. It's like your connective tissue is just that over your muscles. So try to get that fabric to lengthen out. Get some give there. Okay. Right. You don't want it to get all like stiff and then it just won't move at all unless you toss tons of water on it. Lotion, whatever you got to do. Shea butter. Okay. So bend through the left knee and really feel how that left knee moves forward. We're starting with Parsva Konasana first. So left knee forward above the ankle. Turn that back foot down. Left hand is on a block, and then you kind of scoop this underbelly of this left thigh. It kind of rotates in, and then you turn your waist towards the right. Hand could be on your back. It could be on your hip. It could be lifting up. This is a great pose. I mean, I know it's challenging strength and vascular wise for the heart. It's not an easy relaxation, but this current of energy through the legs and the belly organs and muscles is just, it's awesome. So, you know, use a lot of props to help you out. If this one is really a labor for you, but you want to practice it, you can do this sitting in a chair. You can sit in a folding chair. Just sit like this, put your leg back, and then just kind of hang out with it. So there's lots of ways to do this without needing to have a lot of vascular energy. The left arm is down on a block and it's supporting you, right? So you want to make sure that block is in a good spot under you. If you're really sweating it out on your wrist, then cup your hand, actually spider the hand, right? So the fingers press a little bit. You're not forcing, then you have to use your heart a little more and your lungs. The right arm can go over the side of the face. Let's be kind to how much the lunge is for a few more seconds. Breathe. And then lower the right hand down. Okay, and you can tell that position could go in all angles, right? You could go back and forth, but we're starting to kind of wind down a little bit. So you're going to lower the hand and then pivot that back heel up. Steady the lunge. Okay, I want you to feel that connection of the back leg very energized and active. And you might start to lower your back knee. So multitask here. if you're a little concerned about your balance, what we're gonna do is get our bolster. So you might be able to maneuver that in with your knee still up. But if it's not gonna work, you can always put your knee on the blanket and then cross the bolster on your mat. So it's up to your patterning capacity right now with your props, with your balance. So start to lower the back leg. And as you move it down, we're gonna walk the left foot over to the right into pigeon. So the left knee is open and the right thigh is fairly centered, right? So you're feeling like, whew. Okay, this means we're on the other side. Okay, close enough. Now the blocks can go out, you can put your elbows down. You might take a few moments to transition so that your hip can manage that circulation kind of bolt through it. And the back body is releasing, your head maybe lowers down. Breathe wide through the back. You're feeling how the kind of the connector of knee and hip has to be in this pattern to kind of work on the inner thigh and the glutes at the same time. And you know what does the work, right, is the positioning influence of being prone. So this is easier on the lungs, right? It's pretty interesting, the variation this is. So if you need to move your arms to the right or you've got to activate more, that's your option. I'll stay pretty neutral here. You know, feel where the back muscles of the pelvis motion back with your arms pressing down. Okay, so you feel kind of that basket weave of the pelvis, and there's almost this cat shape. So it's that flexing of the spine, the rounding of the back. And you'll walk your hands in towards the left leg. And then when you put the weight to the left buttock, you'll swing the right leg forward. I think we're prop freaks at the bolster. And we'll lay back with our legs up. I'd like you to have your blocks nearby in just an extra case. Never know exactly when we'll use them if we do. But your sandbag could be in your lap. And maybe not the ball under your back. Okay. All right. It has a life of its own. So as you motion on your back, this weighted core could feel really nice. Sometimes it feels good, sometimes not so especially helpful for the moment. But when the gates of the rear kind of open now, especially the circulation back there, as you bring your knees in, you're going to put your sand on your feet and push straight up. Okay. So as the spinal goes, it's going to be focused on the bolster pretty much under your pelvis and then in front of your pelvis. But we're going to keep it very specific right now in the spinal set. So stay with it, as with the feet flexing, with the energetic drive of the legs flowing up. So despite the sand, you might have to kind of set it so it really works for you with your feet pushing up. Okay, so when you flex them and the energetic of the hamstring, kind of put your mind into what a hamstring involved in this position is doing. It's kind of strong, right, from the calf down. It's the opposite of your daily expression with your hamstring. It's usually pushing all the weight into the feet. So this is a good time to kind of reorient your pelvis, your structure in the next several minutes. So I want you to get a feel where your feet are several inches apart right now. And when they're flexing, can you move your elbows open to cactus? Get all your stuff out of your way if it's in your way, the clutter, and let the spine neutral to the brainstem. And maybe there's a light little tuck of the chin. just light enough that your neck is comfortable. Let the belly lift and lower. Feel the leg muscles. Scan the chest, the arms, the legs. Now we'll keep it clear that the focus in these inversions is the diaphragm has to work against gravity. So it's that kind of tone in the core. So when your feet are flexing right now, I want you to give a few moments of this without the sand as well. So when you bend your knees and you sand remove so that your sand is off your feet and your feet are up again. And you might have the tendency to circle your feet, to kind of twinkle your toes, to do something. But feel if you can now move your arms wide and let your feet just be neutral. If they're tingly from the last position with the sand, it's pretty obvious that will happen with the circulation. Draining the legs. Okay, now bring the feet apart. So they're a little wider than hips distance. They already were apart, I guess, but a little wider than hips distancing. And notice the back of the pelvis, how that doesn't necessarily change a lot. In fact, when the feet go out, it tends to narrow the SI joint a little bit. So it's pretty interesting where we're going with it. We'll bend our knees towards the shoulders and then push your bolster forward away from under the pelvis so that your seat lands right next to it, okay? Put your feet on the bolster. And you've done bridge pose patterns where you hold your ankles, that kind of thing you've attempted to. So that means we want the bolster close to our seat. That's all for this purpose. We're not holding the ankles, but you can feel like that's closeness. And now when you lift up your hips, now that broadness of the back of the pelvis, I'm going to emphasize my knees a little bit wide so that it's easier on my knees and it's actually easier on my SI joint. So there's some width. And then bring your arms overhead and drawbridge. So you feel the position of the circulation building in the legs. And then lower the spine down. Alternate that motion, lifting and lowering, hips going up, spine weaving the circulation to the shoulder blades, arms back, and exhale, spine slowly motions down. So take this drawbridge as many times as helps you kind of roll through the musculature of your muscles along your spine. And if you start to lose that musculature sensation, it's time to move to the last pose pattern, okay? So it'll wear out, right? You'll find fatigue also with just doing the sequence, and you'll want to shift. So once your spine is lower and you've kind of plateaued the back down, you're going to cross the right leg over the left, and you get two options on this today. So one option would be my left foot stays on the bolster and I let my knees go to the left side and I put a block over and under. We did this in the beginning where we had the foot on the foot to the knee, right? That crossover in the beginning when we swung over. So it's the full deal now. We kind of went all the way through it to the side. So try to land your leg to the block as much as you can. And a sandbag secures that, doesn't it? It's like, oh, it's kind of almost down and feels like it's stretching, but the sand might seal the deal. So as you shift over there, that's your option one. Now, if you don't like this leg crossover, it's not good for your knee right now. Don't do it. What you could do is have your knees side by side, but you probably will want the block really flat then. And then put your sand on the side of the leg. This works good too. I actually think this feels just a little comfortable for me. So you choose. Come into this for the few moments with that side work in the hip. The waist can drift to the left. It doesn't have to try to get back into the center yet. Feel it being pulled to the left side. Eyes rest back in the brain. Fill the belly. Feel it squeeze in towards the spine. Massaging the organs. You know, when you move into the second side, I want you to observe what would be a good transition direction for you. Would it be to windshield wiper the legs, right? As your sand goes away, maybe you swivel the knees right to left. Maybe it's to scoop up the knees with your hands and circle. So you massage the outer rim of the sacrum, right? This can feel essential. A good one to practice outside of class time, right? Finding this as a habit is good. And then when you do switch the left leg over the right and the knees go to the right side, how do you make this as helpful as you would? I know you might have a memory of, oh, we usually put the bolster on the side yard and we cross over. Well, this is pretty similar chemistry in the leg. It's not really that different. It just, that one fills more time up too. So this is not necessarily anything more than a time saver, but I think you can get as rich of a stretch here too. It's partially the intention with that crossing of the leg. And it might feel too much on the knee to develop this crossover with the leg crossing and weaving around the right leg. So you decide if you want to put your bolster to the side, that's fine. So we position and we let the left arm open. It could be a really different sensation. It could be easier by a long shot or more challenging. Okay, so how do you find that center, moving the belly organs towards the right side now as your leg goes crossing over on the left leg over to the right. And you could change it up and have the knees side by side. Right, so the legs are kind of more stacked. It's fun to shift that and to see if that's good. Ease is okay. Maybe that in the long run will help out the hip to loosen, which helps out the back and the pelvic organs. So with a few moments, noticing the connection of the legs, whether they're gripping together or you need to relax the gripping. So that's a nervous system focus. So we're going to keep this pattern all the way through the final few minutes here. Instead of making a big abrupt change in the lifting and sitting up, rather have you keep this smoothness in the back of the pelvis through the leg. And then you can either stay here a little longer, or you can change the sand, and you might put your block under, or, well, I think block is best because it's firm, under the back of your pelvis. If you don't want to use your block and you want to massage right now, you could use your ball and massage the back of the pelvis for a few moments too. And then stretch the legs forwards. And then add your sand to the front of the hip bones. All right, so you've gone the full cycle of circulation, but it could be the top of the thighs. That feels better for me than the hip bones. So my feet are turned out now because it's Shavasana. They're not trying to turn in. No turning in on the feet. Letting it go. And then feel where the hip balance is lifted. If you don't want to use the block under, don't do it. You don't have to even use your sand. You can let your legs rest on your bolster. So that's an option. And as the arms open out, let the spine Feel its upper wave right to the upper back across the blades. And feel the lift of the belly and the softening on both the in and the out breath. So your full cycle of attention has softened and letting go. Now with the shoulders expansive through the chest portal, right? The arms are open-ish. Some of us might have the elbows bending and the hands back, but there is an open motion in the chest branch. So can we keep that connection, lift up through the rib cage, and then slide the sand if you have that indeed, it goes away. And as the legs position to bend the knees, then take your time. You'll probably need to move your block. Maybe you don't, but it might be helpful to shift it away in your stack and spine down and roll through the spine. So my knees tuck over and I roll and I come up. And when I find my sitting position, knees have that open quality and the spine pushes a little forward on the back. So you'll feel the back, the pack of the pelvis and the spine kind of motioning forward. Let the hands lift up in front of our hearts. Lower the gaze down, closing the eyes and bowing to the heart, surrendering there. Inhale, feeling that support from the collective consciousness here. And exhale, bowing into the space behind your heart. In gratitude, namaste.